If you stood on the doorstep of Japan in 1945, what would war look like? Would you feel black sand under your boots and see cave mouths breathing smoke? Would the sea look like it was set on fire by ships and shells and burning fuel? Stay with me, and I will show you how the land itself decided so much of this fight. Without further ado, let's explore the story of fighting in and around Japan near the end of World War II. First, we set the stage. Japan is a long chain of mountains that rise straight from the sea. Steep slopes squeeze the towns into thin plains. Much of the coast is rough with reefs and hard rock. The ground is good for digging and carving. That is perfect for tunnels and caves. The weather swings hard. Cold currents and storm tracks scrape along the islands. Rains turn paths into clay. Typhoons can flip ships like toys. Now picture the sea lanes. Reef shells wait near many beaches. The surf pulls and throws landing craft. Channels are narrow, and defenders can plan their fire across every approach. In clear weather, you can see far. In rain or fog, you can barely see your hand, which makes surprise more likely. The time of year matters. Spring winds push smoke sideways. Summer heat beats the strength out of men. Fall storms can rip tents, roads, and even airfields. The ground and the sea are not a backdrop. They are active players. Both sides learned a hard rule by 1944 and 1945. You fight the ground first, you fight the enemy second. The Imperial Japanese Army had shifted away from early war charges. Now they planned to make every yard cost blood and hours. They built defense in depth. That means many layers. They placed reverse slope positions, which are guns and caves hidden just behind the top of a ridge. They linked tunnels so a unit could fire from one opening, then vanish, then pop out somewhere else. They used careful camouflage. A rock face looked like a rock face. Then it opened. At night, they sent small groups to cut wire, probe the edges, and slip through ravines. They set mines and booby traps along every obvious path. They pre-sighted the ground so that mortars and machine guns could lock crossing lines of fire on draws and terraces. The Allies had to answer the ground and the plan. Their assaults began with heavy naval gunfire and airstrikes, but the rock was tough. Many positions survived even huge bombardment. So the attacks on land moved with combined arms. Infantry pressed forward with tanks, flamethrowers, and demolition teams. Mortars dropped smoke to blind cave apertures. Star shells turned night into day, so patrols could see movement on the perimeter. Engineers cut new roads when old ones were too exposed. Bulldozers shoved dirt into cave mouths. Satchel charges sealed tunnels. The pace of battle was simple to say and brutal to live. Find the cave, fix it, flame it, seal it, then repeat. Now we come to Iwo Jima. Imagine an island made of cinder and ash. The southern end rises into Mount Suribachi. The middle holds airfields scraped from black sand. The beaches look like they should be easy. They are not. The sand is soft and behaves like a pile of ball bearings. Boots sink, tracks dig and spin. When Allied troops approached, the island at first looked strangely quiet. That was the trap. The defenders stayed silent in deep tunnels under Suribachi and in the northern ridges. When the beaches were full, the hidden guns and mortars opened. The beach fight was a grind from the first minute. Every small rise, every terrace, every draw had at least one machine gun or a mortar watching it. The sand swallowed movement. Vehicles bogged down. Men crawled forward, scooping shallow pits and building small sandbag walls to make any kind of cover. Small teams with flamethrowers moved under covering fire. Snipers hid in shadowed cracks. A slit might be no wider than a fist, yet a rifle behind it could stop a squad. The caves were the true shape of Iwo Jima. A defender could fire through a slit, then drop into a tunnel and appear behind the attackers through an exit that no one had seen. It felt like the island itself was alive. The counter move was steady and simple. Smoke to mask the slit. Flame to clear the chamber. Demolition to seal the tunnel. Tanks angled their hulls to wreck the opening with heavy machine gun fire. Mortars arched shells onto reverse slopes, where guns were hidden just behind the crest. Engineers marked cleared caves so units did not waste lives retaking what was already sealed. Why fight so hard over this one piece of rock? The answer is the airfields. Fighters based there could escort bombers deeper. Damaged bombers could land there instead of splashing into the sea. That purpose kept the push constant. The ground moved by yards and by hours. The soundscape of Iwo Jima was distinct. The short thump of a grenade discharger, the longer chatter of a heavy machine gun, the rapid bursts of a bar, the rush of a flamethrower, the slow roar of a naval shell passing overhead like a train in the sky. Now widen the view to Okinawa. This island is larger. It has coral limestone ridges, terraced fields, and many villages. Family tombs of stone dot the hillsides. The main defensive belt was known as the Shure Line. It coiled across the southern part of the island. The defenders dug into hill, caves, tombs, and cellars. They withdrew from one ridge to the next, trading space for time and for attrition. The use of tombs was striking. Many tombs were reinforced and turned into strong points. Some had machine guns inside. The fields of fire were disguised by walls and cane. Small sniper holes were chipped into coral. When attackers moved, defenders could fire, then crawl deeper into stone to survive the reply. The result was a battle where villages and graves were part of the front. Then the monsoon came. Rain poured and did not stop. Foxholes flooded. Trails turned into rivers of mud. Trucks and tanks sank and stalled. Men moved under ponchos with heads down. Water soaked their packs, their maps, their spirits. Disease rose like a second enemy. Medics worked in mud and darkness. Supply became an act of will. In this weather, night fighting grew more dangerous. Defenders slipped through cane and ravines to pry the edges of the perimeter. Attackers set trip flares and listened for the faint click of wire cutters. When star shells rose, the ridges flashed into a gray daylight. Then darkness fell again and the listening returned. Offshore, another kind of battle raged. Destroyers spread out as radar pickets around the main fleet. They were the early warning line. They also became the first targets of mass suicide attacks from the air. Fast fighters scrambled. Smoke screens bloomed. Rescue craft dodged among ships while some burned stem to stern. The sea around Okinawa looked like a vast workshop and a sudden graveyard at the same time. Cities like Naha in the Shuri area turned into fields of rubble. Blocks became broken grids. Every pile of stone could hide a rifle or a grenade. Tanks advanced with infantry close to their sides. The tanks buttoned up tight. Anti-tank guns and close explosive charges waited in defiles and blind corners. The attackers worked building by building. Flame and demolition cleared what bullets could not touch. The pace was slow, then slower. Now lift your eyes to the sea and the sky over Japan. Long-range bombers crossed cloud lanes at night and at dawn. Streams of incendiaries fell over cities built of wood and paper. Streets burned like the wicks of 100 lamps. Wind turned neighborhoods into chimneys. From newly captured airfields, fighters swept low in daylight to strafe airstrips and roads. High above, contrails marked thin winter light in crossing lines. Air defense adjusted. Searchlights probed the night. Flak bursts were layered by altitude. Defenders dispersed aircraft and supplies into tunnels and caves. Dummy planes sat on empty fields to draw fire. Camouflage nets and decoys tried to confuse the eye from the sky. It did not stop the raids. It only changed how damage fell. The last sorties from the sea were also fierce. Massed suicide attacks aimed for carriers and the picket line. Radar found the attackers. Fighters clawed up to meet them. Ships weaved and threw up curtains of fire. Smoke drifted across the water. In one dramatic moment, a super battleship steamed out on a final run toward Okinawa with little air cover. Waves of attack aircraft found it. The sky turned into a storm of metal and fire. The sea swallowed a giant, and the message was plain. Air power now ruled over steel. While all this happened, both sides measured what an invasion of the main islands would cost. The home coasts were prepared with traps in depth. Beaches were mined and wired. Concrete and rock casemates guarded approaches. Inland cave belts formed second and third lines. Narrow roads and bridges were set to be blown to make choke points. The plan was simple. Bleed the attacker from the surf to the ridgeline, then bleed him again behind it. Defenders were dispersed across the islands. Regular units were mixed with mobilized militia. Training was given fast and hard. In some places, bamboo spears were issued where rifles ran short. Schools and shrines could hide stores. Tunnels linked positions under villages. The idea was to turn every neighborhood into a puzzle box. Units would pop up, strike, and fade back into stone and earth. The Allies built their own counterplan. Landings would focus on the best ground, backed by heavy naval and air preparation. Logistics would surge in behind. Engineers would turn beachheads into bases in days. New airstrips would bring fighter cover close. The infantry would move with tanks, mortars, and flamethrowers. The pattern seen on Iwo Jima and Okinawa would extend onto the main islands, but on a far larger scale. What would it have looked like? Beaches churned by shelling until the sand itself flowed. Smoke curtains drawn across headlands. Bulldozers cutting switchbacks up steep slopes while shells fell around them. Cave mouths burning and then sealed. At night, star shells over suburbs and orchards. The fight would have moved from surf to field to city. It would have been brutal and slow. Let us step down now to the view of a squad on the ground. This is the soldier's eye. Movement is low and careful. Men crawl along terrace edges. They bound up drawers a few steps at a time. They probe cave mouths with grenades and flame. When a tunnel is cleared, someone marks it. Paint, stakes, a strip of cloth on a stick. Anything to show the next unit that this one is done. Signals are simple in this kind of terrain. Field telephones hum in mud. Runners move bent over in ditches with messages tucked under their shirts. Colored panels spread on the ground tell aircraft where friendly lines are. Whistles and flares send quick commands in the dark. Then the line goes silent again so ears can work. A click, a scrape, the faint rattle of a can in a breeze. Men live by such details. Now the toolbox, side by side. On the defending side, Arisaka rifles, light and heavy machine guns. The grenade discharger that some call the knee mortar, spigot mortars hidden behind rocks, mines and satchel charges, close blades for tight spaces, light armor used as mobile pillboxes, anti-tank guns tucked into defiles. On the attacking side, M1 rifles, carbines and submachine guns, the bar and the medium machine gun, 60 and 81 millimeter mortars, bazookas and demolition charges, handheld flamethrowers and flamethrower tanks, bulldozers and charges shaped to break rock. Each tool answers a problem in the ground. Close quarters, fighting is fast and final. Bayonet training and blade drills show in sudden clashes at cave mouths and in alleys. Many fights end at the distance of a table. A thrown charge or a blast of flame decides it. The senses are strong in memory, the smell of cordite and diesel, wet earth and mildew, the ring in the ears after a mortar burst, the clatter of a tank track on stone, the hiss of a star shell, the strange quiet after a thunder of guns. There is one more force to honor, engineers and logistics. The battle only moves as fast as roads, fuel, and water allow. Seabees and army engineers land with their bulldozers in the first waves. They turn beaches into depots. They lay pierced steel planking over mud and sand. They build runways under fire. Ammunition and water move on mule lines and in amphibious tractors through rain and over reefs. Water is purified close to the front. Medical teams stand a few minutes behind the line. Litter teams carry the wounded along trenches and across paddies. Field hospitals on the beachhead work under camouflage netting with engines and surf rumbling day and night. We have reached the end of our path. That concludes the story of how fighting in and around Japan looked in the war's final year. The ground was volcanic ash, coral ridges, tombs, terraces, and belts of caves. The methods were defense in depth, night infiltration, and cave warfare, answered by flame, demolition, mortars, and bulldozers. The wider ring was a sky of fire and a sea guarded by radar pickets. An invasion of the home islands was planned and prepared for on both sides, and it would have been a larger version of what you have just seen. Tell me what surprised you most. Was it the tunnel networks, the radar picket destroyers standing almost alone, or the way rain and storm could rule the timetable of an entire army? And tell me if you want a deep dive next time on cave clearing tactics, on the picket line at sea, or on how engineers turned a beach into an airfield in days. Thank you for watching this video to its fullest. If you're a fan of martial arts, wartime history, or combat in general, make sure you subscribe for more videos just like this one. Have an amazing day, and remember to train hard.